Hey everybody, welcome to the Face-to-Face Ministries podcast, the #1 resource for learning what it means to have a healed heart, connect more deeply with Jesus, and experience true and lasting transformation in your life. I'm one of your hosts, Kathy Little.
And I'm your other host, Melinda Wilson. Please hit subscribe so you don't miss the fresh content we're continuing to release. And while you're at it, we greatly appreciate your help in getting the word out by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a quick review. You can also keep up with us by following our social media by searching face-to-faceministries.org on Facebook. That's no spaces, no numbers, and no caps. And on Instagram at face-to-face-min, and that's all one word.
We want to invite you to join us in our free Face-to-Face Heart Healing Network and in our premium network. Be part of a growing community of people just like you who are wanting to dive deeper into what it means to access the full benefits package of the cross and learning how to help others do the same.
Our team also offers one-on-one ministry sessions that can be done virtually, and you can also learn how to help others connect with Jesus and find healing in their lives through training we offer in the ministry model we use. And for more information about all of the resources, trainings, and events that we offer, visit face-to-faceministries.org. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter.
All right, so let's dive into today's episode. Episode 140. How about it, Melinda? What do you think?
And we do have over 200,000 downloads,
oh,
right?
Yeah, well over now.
Thank you for those of you who have listened and downloaded, and those that are brand new today. You are part of that getting over 200,000 downloads, and we're heading toward 1 million. Everybody,
we are
heading toward 1 million.
And I just want to say a special thank you to all of you who have made the podcast part of your weekly routine. Mm-hmm. And we were doing this once a week, and then our workload increased considerably, and we had to back it off to every other week. But I know you guys are patient waiting when you have to skip a week. This is actually going to be part 2 of our interview with Dr. Karl Lehman, which you are going to love, and the stuff that he teaches us at the end and he talks about at the end, it's like, whoa, this is so mind-blowing and amazing how our brains are wired. So good.
And the thing is, both of us have heard him teach and talk, and we have personal relationship with him, and we're good friends with him. And so I've heard him say a lot over the past many years. But this conversation, I don't know what it was. Maybe I'm in a different place. Well, I am in a different place. He's in a different place. We're all in a different place. But it went really deep and extremely helpful, just resonant with today, with what this world needs today. It was very current.
You know what it felt like to me, Melinda, is that we have been basically taught, mentored by, trained by this man, but now we're training others. And so there's almost been a shift into a peer-to-peer relationship with him, and have the utmost respect for him. I really do. And appreciated, he gave us an hour and a half, which is why we broke this into 2, so it'd be a little bit more bite-sized pieces and all. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. But we do want to share with you a little recap of where we were last weekend.
Yeah, we had Dash Away number 37 in Moravian Falls, North Carolina. We actually were there last year as well. I love doing the coast-to-coast thing. We have North Carolina and California. We had 20 ladies join us, and people came in from about 6-7 different states.
California and Oregon, Georgia, Virginia.
All over
other parts of South Carolina.
Yeah.
It was so good.
And Florida, we want to hear... I think people want to hear proof of what is this you're talking about. If you've never been, then you don't really know. And we just want to share a couple testimonies that ladies who were at the weekend shared.
Yeah, so this one woman said, "This retreat has been a huge step in the healing of my heart and breaking away more of the hard calluses that have been built around it for many years." And we had another one who came from Ohio. She said, "This is absolutely the best event I have ever been to."
And someone else said, "I was able to connect with Jesus and hear his voice, connect with others. My heart is filled with joy."
Yeah. And one more, I like how real you were. Well, we don't know how to be anything else more real. But Jesus healed a place in my heart that was so wounded in childhood, and I'm assured and excited about the freedom I'm going to walk in. The laughter was refreshing.
And they even liked the games that we do, because they're not those grown middle school where everyone's embarrassed and it's really awkward. Everything that we do at Dashaway is very intentional.
Yeah, we actually had a little bit of a dance party at the very end.
We did.
Yeah. And so if you missed Moravian Falls, so sorry, but we do have just a few more spots at Lake Tahoe, July 14 to 16. And we would love to have you join us because you too can experience this. And we are celebrating 10 years of Dashaways. And I don't know if we've made this very public yet or not,
really.
But it's a good time for us to even let you, our listeners, know that we are about to take Dashaway back to the UK.
After how many years? It's
2016.
7 years.
Yeah.
We've done 15 Dashaways in the United Kingdom, but it was really at the beginning stages of Dashaway. And we experienced incredible connection with ladies from all over Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Ireland. But the exciting thing...
what's missing in those countries is...
Wales and England. But the beautiful thing is that I've had on my heart to do this in England. And we've
since
had
the
people
beginning.
since the beginning, and it just didn't open up. But this year... we're going to be in England. I can't even finish the sentence. Y'all, I truly love the mother country. I know it's not everyone's mother country, but Scotland, England, but particularly England, because we've had several English ladies come to Dashaways in other countries, but to be able to do one in England, and it's so exciting to be back in Scotland. This is a place where, ladies, I used to live in Scotland, and so my heart has such a special place in Scotland, and it has been so many years since we've been back. And the privilege of being back in that land to do 2 Dashaways in year 10 is not a coincidence.
Well, it's going to be 39 and 40, and there's something very significant about that. We are so blessed and honored to have an invitation to come back. We were invited to England, and we're going to be there. So we're doing Scotland at the YWAM base, where we've done, I don't know, several events already over there. But it is so wonderful to be able to go back. And we are actually going to be sending out an email to all of our email list, our newsletter list, this week. So be watching for that on ways that you can partner with us to be part of taking the Dashaway back to the UK.
And I'd encourage you to open up that newsletter, and because we're going to be sharing testimonies of ladies that came to Dashaway in the United Kingdom years ago, and these ladies are forever in our hearts. But there was such an impact made, what Jesus did in these ladies' hearts, and what we get to see him continue to do. And, I'm different. Kathy, you're different. And so we come having grown and learned and matured a lot, and Dashaway will not be the same as it was 7 years ago.
That's really true, because we came home from the UK in 2016 burned out. We had done 9 events back to back, and we weren't sure how are we going to do this moving forward. And we made some strides in 2017, and it just kind of got worse. But it was a really good thing for us, because we both had an opportunity to regroup, to do some of our own work, which we're both passionate about, doing our own work, not just expecting others to do theirs. And it was after that hiatus, when God moved us to California and rebranded us, that he brought a rebirth of Dashaway. So we're really looking forward to that. And I just want you guys, let me just say thank you for those that don't scrub through this, because this is our opportunity to talk with you. Yes, we've got amazing, wonderful interviews that we bring to you, and high caliber people doing high caliber things, but we're doing it as well.
Yeah, right.
And so
exactly.
We want you to know what we're doing, and who Face to Face is, and what Melinda and I are carrying, and what we are doing, what we're putting our hands to. We are very diligently pursuing what God has called us to do. And Dashaway is part of that. From an experiential component, for those who attend, they're experiencing Jesus in ways they've never known and didn't even know possible. And then, yes, we are still continuing to do the training in the Immanuel Approach, which is more of the same, helping people connect with the interactive, relational Jesus in a way that transforms their lives. And this is a big vision that we're carrying, and there's many different ways that we're walking this out. And it's really important work. So thank you to those that are listening and that are following us and that haven't just scrubbed on past what we're saying, because this is really important. Because let me just say, Melinda, not that you need to hear this, I'm saying this to everybody, but what's happening with us and the things that we're doing and the doors that God is opening to us, that represents people. It represents people who are experiencing Jesus and becoming more like Jesus and learning the true Lord Jesus, the voice of the true Lord Jesus in their head, instead of the condemning Jesus that we've been taught, a lot of us in religious circles, fundamental circles, where we've got that punitive judgment all the time and don't even realize Jesus wants to just be friends. He wants our friendship.
And not only that, even if you didn't think he was the punitive judge, I never really thought he was the punitive judge. I felt, for me, and I know a lot of people have felt like that, but it was more of, what do I need to continue to do to make him come?
The transactional Jesus.
It was if I spend this amount of time in a quiet time, then I'll have God's presence.
Yeah.
If it was a continual thing, and I've known the Lord my whole life, I know he loves me, I love him, but it was always this subtle thing of, what do I need to do? And I would be kind of envious and compare myself with other people, like, well, they're getting touched by the Lord, why am I not? And I thought, oh my gosh, there must be some sin in my life that I didn't even know about, that I forgot to confess last week. I mean, really, and it sounds almost funny, but it wasn't. And it becomes a performance base, and we don't even know, like, what do I need to do to get him to come? And I don't need to beg him.
Yeah.
So and I could get off on this because
Put your preach on.
but
Well, we
and
better get into our interview here.
So I think we should do a podcast just on the things, the revelation
that we're passionate about.
Yes, and that things that I've walked in the last year, and what I've learned and experienced about God.
We'll do that. And I don't know, these guys probably don't know that we are actually about to take a road trip to Tahoe from South Carolina. So maybe we'll record an episode while we're driving about these things, because I think it's really important for our listeners to know that we're not just hosting people. We're actually in the trenches with the people that we are bringing to you and interviewing. We're peers with these people. We're not just interviewing them and introducing them to you, but we are also carrying the same passion to heal the broken and doing it in some profound ways. And we need your help to do that, y'all. We need your help.
And I think that we're going to shamelessly, truly, and we're going to shamelessly ask you to partner with us to go to the United Kingdom and to continue the ministry and mission of face-to-face ministries. Because without your support, we actually can't do this.
That's true. And without your support, there are people who will miss out on what it is that Jesus is doing through what we're doing.
Right. And particularly the United Kingdom, there is just a different heart. There's a different mindset. It's a different culture. And we want to go and
serve.
Exactly. That's our heart. We're not going there. I say it's a different culture because it is a different culture, but we're not going with the great American hope. That's not what this is about. We want to serve our sisters. I'm sure we'll see some brothers in the United Kingdom too, but particularly for Dashaway. And we want to be there to serve. And the last time we went, I can't believe it's 7 years ago, we raised the money there to bless our sisters there. We raised the money here to bless our sisters there. And we just want to do that again. And we know that the time is now. It came together so easily without any striving. It was like, okay, the door is open now.
So this is your opportunity to partner with us to make this happen for the ladies over in the UK. And on our website, right on the very homepage, there's a little button on the far right that says give. And there's already a give button there for this particular UK trip. And we're going to be sending out an email from our board chair, actually, to kind of introduce you more to how you can partner with us, because we can't do this without the resources to get where we need to go and to do what we're called to do. So we're asking you, we're actually believing God for $5,000 in monthly Grow Team giving to increase that amount. That's what we're asking Jesus for. And we need about $12,000 to do this trip to the UK. So that's our ask, y'all. And we would love to have you partner with us. It's well worth it. I mean, the investment is really transformation in the lives of countless people, because it's not just the one woman we touch at Dashway, but everybody else in their lives that the ripple effect moves on.
Generationally.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was a big long bumper. So sorry, but I'm not sorry. But y'all, maybe we will just do a podcast interview where you can hear more about us and our heart and where we're at and what God's doing with us, because we aren't just the hosts. We are people doing the work as well. So without any further delay, we are going to introduce you to part 2 of Dr. Karl Lehman. And he's going to share with us some amazing things that are happening with the model that we also train in, the Immanuel Approach, and the exposure it is having and the embrace that's being embraced by InterVarsity, which is pretty cool. So you'll hear more about that from him. And also hang on till the end, because he's talking about mirror neurons, and it will fascinate you.
It will. Right. Thanks for listening.
Part of my dream is on college campuses. One of the things that InterVarsity is excited about is starting to use this let me back up a notch. So several years ago, when I first approached InterVarsity with the whole Immanuel thing, and they're like, they're wise people, so they like to, they try things carefully in a controlled setting on a small scale, before they release it to the world. And we knew well, one of the vice presidents, somebody that we've been supporting and we've known for 40 years, so they at least listened to us. But first, let's first try this with our upper level staff people who are wise. They've been with us for decades. We know them. Let's get a team of people that we know there are mid upper level leadership people. Let's try it with them. So we tried it there, and every single person who tried it, this is fantastic. And it spread, and then it's like, okay, so the trial balloon went over really well. At which point, the leadership said, "We want to do this. Is what we want to do for Urbana. This is the ministry we want to do at Urbana." So then I was like, okay, we need to train 100 people. So for the next year and a half, Peter and I worked our buns off. And if you have for 100 to show up, you got to train 200. So we worked our buns off to train 200, mid-level InterVarsity staff people who could actually be ministers at Urbana. So that's cool and exciting. Well, understandably, there are leaders and there are lawyers. At first, we're like, they want to see several layers of success and minimal breakage before they say, we're going to tell our 23-year-old, like a lot of their campus workers are just barely graduated. Right. They're 23, 24-year-olds. So I'm proposing, can I just general policy, train and release hundreds of 24-year-olds to use this new tool with teenagers that you don't know. Understandably, they were like, we want to have several rounds of testing.
Sure.
Before we do that. That's a pretty bold, crazy move, especially when, and part of what we're talking about is those 24-year-olds with no mental health training. Part of what they're going to do with the teenagers we don't know is to actually do trauma therapy, with no mental health supervision. And not surprisingly, the lawyers and the leadership, the highest level of leadership, were like,
no.
The fact that they even kept listening to us and let us try it for midnight, it was wonderful, and the grace of God. And part of it was a result of, every couple of months, Peter would tell me, so once we trained a few layers and I was in the middle of it and I did mentoring groups, and he was doing more of the training himself. And every time he'd talk to me, he'd say, 100%, every single person on staff who tries it is like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. So that helps. When you're batting 1,000, people notice. So that goes, one step at a, each step kind of getting bigger, trying carefully, watching for fruit, watching for breakage. So after Urbana, basically the highest level of leadership has decided that we are now releasing, we are officially sanctioning, approving, encouraging our campus workers in general, all over the country, to learn Immanuel and be able to use it with students.
Come on.
That is so awesome.
Come on.
So awesome.
And you guys heard me talking about that when, I spent so many hundreds of hours working on Urbana. And one of the things I said to you guys was, if this really goes well, I dream, so it'll be wonderful to have hundreds of students at Urbana meet Jesus. That'll be great. But a bigger strategic target is, if things go well enough, if our people are well prepared, if the folks you bring are actually adequately prepared and they have good fruit and minimal breakage, then in addition to the students who are there, the staff at every level of Urbana, at every level of InterVarsity, are going to say, okay, that's a big enough trial balloon with such a high percentage of success and such a low level of breakage that we are now ready to go to the next step. And that's actually what has happened. So thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
And they've even said it's okay to train students to use the first steps with each other.
Come on.
So wisely, they're not saying, okay, teach 18-year-olds to do trauma therapy with each other. That's a good place to be careful. But they've officially blessed the 24-year-old staff workers can use it for all purposes, including trauma. And you can train your kids, your students, to use the first steps to help each other connect with Jesus and do spiritual direction and guidance and just spend time with Jesus and get comfort from Jesus. And that's all just in the last couple of months since Urbana. That's just being made official.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And we, for those in I don't know if everybody who's listening to this now knows that our involvement with that was that you had asked for volunteers from those that you've trained and those that we've trained to bring teams alongside of those who are newer to the model to have some more advanced help. And so Melinda and I brought a team of 10 to come and minister. And then some of us, including Melinda and I, were on that higher level of, we're going to sit on the wall. And if you need help, come get us, if you get stuck. But
the expert troubleshooters who are available for consultation if the beginners got stuck. Yep.
So that's a buoy that you had available for them to throw in the pool if they needed it. Yep. But one of the things that I found really interesting about the whole Urbana experience is that although they had us as the experienced troubleshooters, there was also another layer of safety buoy for trained psychologists, professionals to intervene if there was some sort of, if the trauma was at a certain level, we need to bring in the big dogs, right? And so they had several people that were available on the wall watching, and if they raised a finger, then those guys came in. But from what I understand, talking to you after the fact, is that the need for that level of intervention was way lower than it had ever been, because of the safety of the model to not re-traumatize people because of that appreciation, positive memory, not starting in trauma. So that alone should speak volumes for the safety of the model, even when it's in the hands of those that are young and not super skilled.
That did not go unnoticed.
Yeah.
The psychiatric intervention team, the leader of the team and the members of the team told me, we have never been so unemployed.
Come on.
Yes.
We have never had an Urbana where there was so little need for our services. And this time there was 0 ER visits.
Wow.
Right, there was 0 crisis psychiatric intervention team. I mean, they did a number of suicidal consultations. A kid mentioned suicide. They want to have somebody who's trained to really evaluate that. They had 0, a certain level of messy intervention where they were familiar. I mean, would always happen before, a handful at least, where it'd been big enough and messy enough that the psychiatric intervention team had to have a significant intervention. And some of the time that would end up with psych ER, psych hospitalization. They had 0 of them.
Come on.
0. And then the last night, New Year's Eve. So you got thousands of kids, who've been wound up all week and sleep deprived, and excited and, overstimulated and, everything you could think of. And also sometimes triggered. And sometimes if they're not included in some clique, they've been feeling all kinds of rejection trauma, whatever. So if I understood correctly, every previous Urbana, at the last session of the whole deal, midnight comes and they're having the big celebration, and it's and everybody at midnight comes, and everybody's yelling, whatever. All hands on deck. They have just all hell breaks loose. I mean, and also it seems like the enemy has learned to cause trouble there too. So they had good intercession about spiritual attack stuff, but also, we were doing Immanuel the whole week. And the psych intervention team said, we all just went home. Nothing happened.
Wow.
I mean, every previous Urbana, the end of the last session, at the end of the whole week, where kids have been staying up late and losing their sleep and excited to be with friends and sometimes triggered all week long, they would stay for hours. I mean, there would just be, all hell would break loose at the very end of the last plenary session. Said, this time, never seen it before. Nothing happened. We all just went home.
That's incredibly remarkable. And as I'm listening to you and as I'm reflecting, because we were there at Urbana, we watched this, we were in real time. And I'm thinking that what we're talking about right now, what you're saying right now, you're describing an ecosystem, the InterVarsity ecosystem, and you're describing how careful they were and how many layers of, prove it. Yeah. Yeah. And then deploying the model on a grand scale with thousands of students at the Urbana conference. And then the real tangible, measurable fruit that the psychiatric intervention team had nothing to do because of the model. So just track with me here, because I'm thinking, if I'm a pastor or a leader in a church who may possibly be aware that the world is traumatized and I don't really know what to do with them when they come, or I need more people to do this when they do come, I'm thinking this is
aware of the fact that a bunch of the people in your church already need help.
Sure.
And they're burning you out because you're desperately trying to do the best you can. And you know that you don't have enough. Mm-hmm. And every week you're painfully aware of that reality.
Yeah. I'm thinking this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer because I'm thinking the brilliance of this, because it is so scientifically anchored in modern brain science. This is cutting edge brain science anchoring this whole thing with measurable fruit and minimal breakage. I love how you say that. Why not? Why not equip your people even with the basics of introducing Jesus and helping them to have that tangible connection? Why not?
And so my hope, Kathy, as people discover this reality amongst the noise, the signal, all the noise, with 100 other people all claiming that they have something just as good. And when you try, how many people have we met who said, yeah, and I tried 10 of the other things that made similar claims, and they were all big disappointments. And oh my gosh, I tried the Immanuel Approach. Holy buckets, it's wonderful. I didn't even know this was possible. I mean, you know how many students at Urbana did you hear or see or have, or at the breaks, somebody else was telling, at the end of the first session, I talked to one of the InterVarsity staff. This is like, somebody who's done the basic training and had 5 practice sessions. He said, I prayed with 4 people. 3 of them were students. All 4 connected with the living presence of Jesus. And all 3 of the students, this was the first time in their lives that they had actually had a tangible perception. They were able to perceive and connect. They experienced the tangible living presence of Jesus and had a living back and forth interaction with the tangible abiding presence of Jesus. And the students were all like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was possible.
We get that every
and
training.
This is less than an hour. That's the thing. It didn't take, they didn't have time to do a big, at Urbana certainly didn't have time to do a big training on what we're about to do. Let me give you 6 hours of teaching. No. And that's the beauty of this, is that if you have 45 minutes, a half hour even with somebody, and so you don't have to have hours and hours long session, and very cool. They can go away. And one thing that happened, I heard during our a couple weeks ago, just somebody experienced Jesus, and then they proceeded to say, in a traumatic memory, and then they proceeded to say, oh, I see where he was here and here and here and here and here, we've experienced this over and over again without having to go, because we can't spend the rest of it would take lifetimes to go through every traumatic memory. And we see that happen is one.
Over.
Yeah. And so now I see where he was with me here. And it's like this
Ripple
thing. And
that's a profound experience. When a person says, oh my goodness, Jesus was just showing me how he's been with me in all these places in my life. Yet, all three of us have lost count of how many people have said that. So here's another thought about, your whole question, Kathy, of this is a no-brainer. Why wouldn't every church in the country, every ministry in the country, every family in the country do this? So I totally agree. If they would actually be able to find the signal amongst the noise,
right,
and recognize how much sense it makes, and also be able to tell the difference between, here's another one. Without scientific training, most people do not quickly and easily tell the difference between pseudoscience and real science. I mean, being a doctor, who I have also a bachelor's degree in chemistry and biology and physics and a minor in math, in addition to my MD. So, a lot of science.
Yeah, I'll say.
I can quickly spot how many things come into my inbox that look kind of like science. They have a molecule. Well, that surely is a benzene molecule. Yep. And here's a picture of a blood cell. Yep, that's sure enough a blood cell. And even maybe a correct statement about, and actually benzene is a poison. But it's like, okay, vitamin C, citric acid. Citric acid can do this, can cause some benefit with scurvy or whatever. That's all true. And the average customer doesn't realize, so that's all true. But is the thing you're giving them actually getting into their bloodstream? The pill you're selling, does it cause vitamin C in the bloodstream? And the level in the bloodstream is actually high enough, like that chemical reaction you talk about. Sure enough, it happens, but that happens at this level. Do we have any idea whether your pill actually produces that level? Because you can put vitamin C in the bloodstream, but if it's half as much as you need, like penicillin, that's classic. If the level is not high enough, it won't do the job. Which is why you actually have to know what dose to use. And there's frequently little pieces of science with huge gaps in between, with no logical connections, and there's parts of the picture missing. And the average customer says, wow, look at those molecules, and look at that photograph, and look at that. And the guy in the white lab coat with a stethoscope is claiming that, whatever. And that's also just everywhere. So to be able to find the signal amongst all the noise is challenging. So hopeful thing, back to InterVarsity, God bless them. Careful discernment. Let's try a little bitty trial balloon. Okay, let's try a bigger trial balloon. Okay, let's try a bigger trial balloon. We're getting good fruit, minimal breakage. Okay, let's try a giant trial balloon, Urbana. Okay, now let's release all of our campus staff, our 24-year-olds all over the country, to use this with their students and teach their students to use it with each other on the first steps. Also, another one, just new. The new policy is all new InterVarsity staff now receive at least one Immanuel session as a routine part of their onboarding preparation.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Dude, seriously.
Totally. That is, so the now new policy in InterVarsity is all new staff will receive at least one Immanuel session as the routine, as a routine part of their onboarding for being new staff.
Oh my gosh.
That's huge. But that's a fruit of, we've been working diligently for 2 years. Careful prep, careful training, careful trial balloons, watching the fruit, watching the breakage.
That's incredible.
There's another cool one. And then here's one I talked to Peter this morning. So half of his job, he's career InterVarsity staff. He's about my age, been there for decades. And he has two parts of his job. Half of his job is spiritual formation. And so now, as of it's been kind of happening for the last couple of years as we've been doing this together, but his primary task for his whole spiritual direction part of his job, which is half half of his full-time job is now help Immanuel Approach spread throughout every aspect of InterVarsity for the entire country. That is actually that's what he primarily does with half his time now. That's cool.
Whoa. And they're doing this with the college students, because that's been on my heart. I mean, we're probably the youngest trainers you have. I think, we're not the only ones who are training. We're the youngest, newer on the scene in the past 3 or 4 years or whatever. And one of the things that is so disheartening to us is when we see all of the gray hair and none of the young folks. And it's like, we've got to get the generation behind us. But imagine the influence if all of InterVarsity, I mean, this is what's happening, is that all of InterVarsity is embracing this. So college students on campuses across the country and beyond are starting young. And,
yes.
And to require a session for all their leaders, oh my gosh, brilliant. Thank you.
All their leaders, all their staff.
All their staff.
Yes, not even just their leaders, all their staff.
That's amazing.
So more fun. So InterVarsity has somewhere between 20 and 30 international colleagues. I mean, so InterVarsity, the exact same name, is the organization I've been working with is for the United States. And they actually have the same name, but Canada for Canada. But there's 20 or 30 other countries that have something similar. It's just not called InterVarsity. So there's 20 to 30 InterVarsity parallels in other countries all over the world. Mm. So Peter has connection with all those people. Mm. And they've been kind of paying attention and hearing his stories. So they're starting. So all the other countries have also been watching the trial balloon thing. So InterVarsity United States tries a little experiment with their mid-level, more senior staff. Very good, careful, controlled, safe place to try it. Small trial balloon, middle trial balloon, giant Urbana trial balloon. Now they're doing a huge trial balloon. Now it's giant. I mean, so the current trial balloon for the rest of the world is InterVarsity US is now training. All their new staff will experience a session. They're encouraging them to get training. All their campus staff have been blessed to get training and use it with their students, and they're encouraging them and teach their students to use it with each other. So all the rest of the world is now watching InterVarsity US. And Peter has already said crew has already asked him, can we get training in Immanuel? InterVarsity Canada has now asked him, hey, can we get training in Immanuel? And my hope is as the trial balloons continue to do well, which I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, we've been very careful with our first 5, with our first however many trial balloons. And as that just keeps being apparent, and we've been slow and careful and diligent, Dr. Karl is thorough. So that's part of why we got such a high success and such minimal breakage is we've been careful. And so the whole rest of the world, all those parallel organizations are watching InterVarsity US. So hopefully that's going to spread to 20 to 30 other countries. Okay. And then the vice president that we know well, that Charlotte and I have known for 40 years, he had a conversation with Charlotte at Urbana. He said, historically, InterVarsity has been kind of a scouting, other people watch InterVarsity, and Urbana especially has been a super spreader event. So
used in the most positive context.
used in a positive context.
Super spreader of Jesus.
About super spreader and going viral, not COVID. But the idea that people go from Urbana back to 800 campuses, staff and students, and parents come along. And also, here's another one, that InterVarsity staff turnover, a high rate of turnover, especially the large numbers of the young people on campuses, rapid turnover. And if I remember correctly, a third of the young InterVarsity staff who turn over quickly go on to be pastors or ministry leaders. So now all the new staff who actually have a session themselves as a part of their onboarding training and are encouraged to learn it and use it. And then a third of them go on to be pastors and ministry leaders. That's going to help. But part of what Shannon was saying, just Urbana itself has historically been a super spreader where people watch and they watch the things that they see used and that work at Urbana, there's lots of other people watching. I mean, they like, again, they let InterVarsity do the trial balloons, and they let Urbana be a big trial balloon, which is a wise way to do things. I mean, if you have a friend who's willing to take a big risk and try something exciting but unsure, and they're willing to do it first, and you say, okay, well, I'll watch you. You go out on the ice, and if you fall through, I mean, I'll go get help, but I'm not going to go out skating too. And if you go out there and it's fine, then the rest of us will come join you. So from what Shannon was saying, is historically that's InterVarsity and Urbana have been kind of like that, where ministries, churches all over the country and all over the world watch, and they say, okay, if it works well at Urbana and with InterVarsity, they have good fruit and small and minimal breakage, then all the rest of us will try it. So at least what he said, that's been historic. Super spreader, InterVarsity, and Urbana. So of course we're praying, okay, let that be so, Lord, because it seems reasonable. I mean, it doesn't seem like a wild, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket. That's how I'm going to pay for my ministry. Like that's not a good plan.
Oh shoot, man! I just bought. Anyway, just kidding.
Yeah, you guys need to more consultation with Carver. If your ministry support plan is to buy a lottery ticket each month.
What if it's only $1 lottery ticket? Does that count?
Yeah, that's lower risk, but the chance that that's going to pay your rent is pretty low. So, but in contrast, I think it's not a crazy thought that could be true for this. And as we've seen things over the last couple of years with InterVarsity, just success, good fruit, minimal breakage at every level. And then we saw that at Urbana. And then now it's being encouraged to spread even more widely all over throughout the whole country in their network. And as that goes well, that thing you said, Kathy, why wouldn't people, it'd be a no-brainer. Well, so what Shannon says is that actually often happens with InterVarsity and Urbana, is that there's lots of people who watch. And this is one of the places where in the flood of noise everywhere, there are lots of people who've learned, let's watch things that InterVarsity actually tries. And we'll watch them, we'll let them take the risk. And if they try something big and bold and new, and they try a bunch of things, and okay, so they find something that works and they prove it and it has good fruit and minimal breakage, then all the rest of us will try it. So my hope is that our friend will be right about that.
Yeah, I hope so, because from what I've seen, and obviously Melinda and I have a front row seat as we minister one-on-one to people, as we train people, as we watch this happen in the training, because it's the same. We do the training where you learn it, you watch it, you teach it, basically, they do in med school. I mean, you
theory, you watch the demonstration, you practice it yourself.
Yep.
And then you go ahead and share it.
Yeah. So we're doing that in the training piece by piece. And even the beauty, I mean, even in just the very beginning appreciation piece, to see tears fall and for people to be surprised that in the telling of their appreciation story, how it just rippled and expanded. And yeah, it's just amazing. And we watch it all the time. We've got a front row seat to this. And I've been very, discouraged with even when we've put ad money into trying to promote trainings and whatever, it is lost in a sea. And so I just don't know how to fix that, and it is word of mouth. So maybe we should just say, hey, listen, if you have been trained in this, you've experienced this, start sharing your story, because the word of mouth is so vital.
Yeah. So right here for your podcast, you're right, Kathy, because advertisement money to send out another email or a brochure or a pamphlet or a poster where the average public is getting 10 of those a day from 100 other people and ministries and claims, whatever. They can't tell the difference between pseudoscience and real science and exaggerated claims and reasonable claims. So if our perception of that is accurate, one of the huge things that we need is for people who have experienced it to actually help spread it. Say, hey, folks, we don't have other good ways of spreading this good news. And even as it's not like we're asking you to do our work. We're asking you, please help us spread the good news of helping people experience the living tangible, interactive presence of Jesus. And other methods are not working well. We are investing in those other methods. We're doing the best we can in other ways. Well, actually, I don't have any advertising department because we don't have a lot of money and I'm too busy doing other stuff. I'm trying to develop new material. But actually, as it's turning out, those things actually don't even work very well anymore. So
No, they don't.
Thank you, Jesus, that Charlotte and I haven't mortgaged our home for an advertising campaign that wouldn't have worked very well. It would have just gotten lost in the sea in the ocean of red. And one of the methods that does still work is so those of you out there in TV land or out there in podcast land, if you're experiencing this and you're discovering they're not exaggerating. I mean, oh my goodness, this is real. Holy buckets. Like it was hard to believe what they said could be true because it just sounded so unbelievable. But you try it and it actually works and you can feel the effect and the impact in your body and in your heart and in your mind. And you experience the presence of Jesus and you can get healing for trauma and you see the fruit and transformation in your lives and in your family and in your marriage. Okay? If that's happening to you, don't think, oh, somebody else has a big advertising department. It's their job. I'm just going to enjoy the fruit and happily go about my way.
Mm-mm.
And somebody else is going to help the rest of the world know about this.
Nope.
No, like Jesus, way back there in the New Testament, he didn't say, enjoy the gospel, go home and just sit in your backyard, sip your lemonade, and just enjoy the gospel. Don't worry about sharing it. I've hired a marketing firm. I've hired a marketing firm. They're going to take care of the spread. You can just go home and enjoy it. Don't worry about it. We're kind of in the same place.
We are.
That plan is not actually going to work.
No.
And all those folks listening, the people in our networks, you guys need to help us spread this because that's actually the method that's working. For you experience the fruit in your own life and you share that, you share with your family, with your friends, with your cousins, with your siblings, with your neighbors, with your church, with the people in church with you, with your Bible study members, your small group members. You actually share about your experiences with the people you know and the people who they know you and trust you. They get the 58th email this week in their inbox about some new miracle cure. They just delete it.
Yeah.
They've known you for 18 years. You come to small group next week and share about something that you actually tried, a seminar you went to, a technique you used. You share with people and they know you and trust you. And you talk about something that's actually changing your life. That actually is going to work.
Yeah. That's true. It's the only way to silence the noise is when you've got a real living person that you have relational equity with.
Yep. So that's kind of been, I haven't quite said it so clearly out loud in words explicitly. That's kind of been feeling more and more intuitively true, but I'm saying it out loud here and to the people who hear this podcast. And everywhere we go, and I need to send this in I need to say it this clearly and send it out in my newsletter. But yes, for people who have been blessed and transformed by Immanuel prayer, Immanuel approach,
yeah.
You guys need to actually, it's not just, why should I do Dr. Karl's marketing for him? He's a rich doctor, not. He can take somebody. Part of how this is happening over these years is I've spent 20 years developing this material. Nobody's been paying me for all that time. There's not some ministry or university. So Charlotte and I don't have the money to hire a marketing firm. And it doesn't work anyway. And there's not this isn't some big empire where Kathy and Melinda are driving a Rolls. And they want to make more money. They want you to volunteer to do their marketing for free so they can live high on the hog. Mm-mm. That's not what's happening. The deal here is most of the world is not going to actually learn about this fantastic, brilliant, good news from God about how to experience the living presence of Jesus unless the foot soldiers who are experiencing transformation take it to a whole new level to talk to their friends and family and acquaintances appropriately. Don't be obnoxious. Don't exaggerate. But just if you have hesitance, take care of your triggers, get rid of them, and then be a part of Jesus's plan to show the world by just simply sharing with people that trust you about your experience.
Yeah.
Well, let it be so, Jesus.
Let it be. Wow.
I was going to say thank you for your time, Dr. Karl. It sounds like you've got a little bit of a cold or something going on. And
I'm recovering from a flu for the last 5 days. And Kathy heard that story. Yeah, my voice sounds pretty funky, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, for those of you that have never heard Dr. Karl, maybe we should have said at the beginning, but who cares? It's all the content's so beautiful. I mean, we care that you're recovering and you still came to speak anyway. And thank you. I mean, we can see him and hear him. So
I gave him the out, but he said, I'm just going to be real. So that goes a long distance too, And he also, Karl, you did say that because you're recovering, you won't talk quite as fast because your voice would crack. And so it's like slowing it down just a little bit is helpful.
Yeah. So for the people listening to this podcast, or probably it's going to be broken up into more than one.
It probably will. Mm-hmm.
So this is not what my voice usually sounds like.
Nope, not quite.
And also, this is not, I usually talk about twice as fast. But today, as I showed Kathy earlier, if I start talking faster, my voice goes. If I start talking faster, it sounds like I'm on helium. So that actually is my real voice. If I talk my usual speed, it sounds like I've been breathing helium for the last 5 minutes, and it's unintelligible. So you've had the rare experience of hearing Dr. Karl speak at a halfway normal rate.
Yeah, they don't have to slow the playback speed down, which is actually an option on a lot of podcasts and video playbacks. And
except for mostly people speed them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
People will be talking about their thing and they're sharing about their story or whatever, and they're having this kind of casual conversation.
Yeah.
Because I speed it up to 175 because I've got too much to do, and I've got a little break and I have to go through 3 podcasts. I'm one of the few where people slow it down instead of speed it up.
Oh my goodness. Well, Karl, both of us have been personally impacted by the interactive presence of Jesus through these tools. And that's why we are so passionate to help you spread the word. I'm so excited to hear the backstory of what's going on with InterVarsity and the uptick of that, and even with crew being interested, and even what you were saying about how the world is watching and there's so many people paying attention. And so my encouragement to everybody is to listen up, because this is really revolutionary. It is changing lives very tangibly. We see it all the time. I mean, people, you're around us a minute, we're passionate about this. And it's because we've seen the fruit. We've experienced the fruit. We witness it every time we do a training, and we can have a room of people that have no intention of meeting one-on-one with a client, and it matters not.
Yep.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that I'm just so grateful, Dr. Karl. I think we can wrap it up, just because we could talk for hours. We could make this a 9-part series.
Yeah,
but we don't want to overwhelm people, and we understand capacity. So
I'm going to break it up.
I know.
And you also have me already on for July, where I'm going to talk about memory consolidation, which is a new, really exciting piece of brain science.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you said that, because that is part of the Touch Point series that's in our subscription. And we may take some of that for podcasts, but if you guys want to come in and be part of interacting with Dr. Karl and hearing him in July, that actually it's not Touch Points, it's our Meet the Healers. We've got the whole series of Meet the Healers. So once a month in our premium Hub Plus membership, which is it's on sale for 50% off right now, but we're getting people in that. This is an opportunity for you to meet the healers, and Dr. Karl is there in July. So come on and join us in there. That's another way to, actually, we've got probably 30 demos with a debrief archived in that. So you can watch the Immanuel Approach and see us leading these sessions, watch full sessions, get to interact and ask questions about them, and volunteer to receive one in future demo and debrief. I mean, we're doing our best, man. We want the word out. We want people to experience this because it's life-changing.
Yes, and there's one for listeners. If you're hearing this and you haven't tried it yet and you're just wondering about it, those live demos in their system, and then also on my website, there's live demos that you can buy. that's a low risk. I mean, for a few bucks, for $12 or whatever, something. You can actually see live sessions. And this is not a reenactment. It's not a description where you can misremember and exaggerate pretty easily. But this is filmed live.
Right.
So you can actually watch it, and you actually watch somebody engaging with the living presence of Jesus. And it's you can judge for yourself. I mean, just watch the live video and decide, does that look pretty wild and crazy and amazing to you? And also, so if you're trying to decide, you haven't seen it yourself, you haven't experienced it, watch those videos. That's a way to do it. And if you're thinking about sharing it with others, and so you talk about it, and they're like a little skeptical, a resource you can use is saying, "Hey, you don't have to just trust me. There are sessions that were filmed live. Dr. Carl's resources, Kathy and Melinda's resources. If you want to explore this more, you can watch actual live sessions and evaluate for yourself.
Yeah,
that's a powerful tool in giving really. That's a huge data point, a strong data point for people who are thinking about it and they're skeptical or unsure, to be able to watch live sessions.
Yeah,
that's a very.
Well, I feel like that's a gold mine that we build it every month, because we do this every month, and then we always archive them. And we have a 7-day free trial, so you can pop into the hub and go look at them and see what you think. And then if you don't want to do it, you can cancel. It's not a big deal. But we're so happy to be part of this. I mean, I'm so honored to be part of this and to be able to watch Jesus in action every time, whether it's a one-on-one or a training or a demo in the network, whatever. It's absolutely, it's astounding what Jesus can do. I mean, he's so much better than we know, and so much better than we think, so much better than we've been told. He's really good. And watching him move is amazing.
And did I talk about the mirror neuron brain science on this podcast yet for you guys?
No, you haven't. Please do, because what I just said.
Yes. So I've talked about that somewhere else, but this is, yes, one more amazingly huge reason to both receive and facilitate Immanuel sessions is the way your brain is designed, the way all of our brains are designed. Your left hemisphere will get the theory, which is good. That's important. To understand, well, why does it work? How does it work? To understand the theory is valuable. Your right hemisphere does the skill part. Like with tennis, if you just read the book, but don't actually watch somebody demonstrate it and then practice it, anybody knows that's not going to turn out well. And the ideal is understand the theory and watch somebody demonstrate and then practice. And so the most effective first step of right hemisphere learning skill is to watch somebody else demonstrate what you want to learn. And when you do that, your brain, the right hemisphere of your brain, even just watching somebody, an expert, watching somebody demonstrate it correctly, your brain will actually start copying. It'll start actually downloading and copying. It will start changing. Your brain will start changing to be more like the person who is demonstrating it correctly. The first step of learning the skill in your own brain, your brain will actually start developing the skill just by watching somebody else demonstrate it correctly. So what that means is when you experience an Immanuel session and you engage with the living presence of Jesus, your right hemisphere is watching the living Jesus demonstrate how to do things. And when you facilitate, whenever I facilitate, and the person is describing, I'm kind of picturing. It's a very poignant experience to be the facilitator. You're sitting right next to the person. They're describing what's happening. They're crying. Tears are running down their face. And I'm always kind of envisioning. I'm always kind of picturing in my mind. It's helpful to have good mind sight. To be a good facilitator, it's good to have good mind sight. And so, as Kathy's describing what's happening, I'm kind of picturing it in my own mind. So, even just being a facilitator, as she's describing what's happening in her experience, I'm picturing that and sort of picturing Jesus, what she's describing Jesus doing, I'm kind of picturing that. So even just facilitating your right hemisphere, your mirror neurons, your right hemisphere is actually already starting to learn from Jesus and become more like Jesus. So facilitating or receiving Immanuel Approach, and of course the best is both, your brain will actually become more like the mind of Christ, which is totally crazy. I mean,
that's awesome.
And there's
It's
no,
just like,
and that's the thing about, it's not like it takes effort of what do I do to be transformed by the renewing of my mind, Romans 12:1, that it just, and so much of the Immanuel approach that I've experienced, all the stuff that we read in the Bible that we think we have to do, it just flows out of that instead of it being a bunch of rules that we're trying to follow. And that's why even a quick example of, we don't say, oh, you must forgive this person. But if Jesus is not, that's not his primary focus, and he just wants to meet with them for intimate connection. And out of that flows forgiveness. Out of that flows what Jesus wants to really do, instead of us trying to guess what might need to be happening in the session.
and you can even, if that thought comes to you, you can say, hey, my perception is there's a lot of bitterness still there. Would you, I would, if it feels right to you, would you be willing to ask Jesus about that? And so you engage directly with Jesus about, oh, right, Melinda's right, Jesus. I do still have bitterness there. What about that? And then he will find the splinters where there's still unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
And as you have both seen, when the trauma is all healed, forgiveness is surprisingly easy.
Yes.
And a new one I've been trying is, so first of all, okay, Jesus, what about the bitterness thing? And he finds any splinters that remain, so the pain is gone. And then if it often spontaneously, he'll just do this all by himself. Say, oh, I'm like looking out through Jesus' eyes. He's showing me, I'm seeing this person the way Jesus sees them. He's showing me how he sees them. And some people have actually said, oh, I'm looking out through these windows. Wait a minute. No, I'm inside. I'm looking out through Jesus' eyes. Like I'm in some tall building looking out through the observation deck windows. I'm looking out, literally, I'm inside Jesus' head, looking out through his eyes. He is showing me this is how he sees Kathy. And I discovered if they say, oh, yes, I do want to work on bitterness. Okay, so ask Jesus about that. He can just, if there's some spiritual stronghold, he'll tell you. If there's unresolved pain, he'll resolve it. Then you can say, okay, and Jesus, we're asking, can you help Kathy see this person through your eyes? Can you show her, how do you see this person? You do that with Jesus, and it just flows. And people I've done this experience myself. Some pain from my childhood that I have chosen to forgive over and over. I've repented of bitterness. I've renounced judgment. I've done those things over and over and over and over and over and over for decades and decades and decades. And they do help some. If you are consciously asking for help and renouncing judgment and bitterness, it's harder for the enemy to grow it and infect it. But if there's still trauma down there, the next time that trauma gets activated, darn, that bitterness vampire is back. Like, we can't kill that blankety blank. You engage directly with Jesus about that bitterness and forgiveness, and he does those pieces I just described. Oh my goodness, that forgiveness flows from your heart and it sticks. It's just the coolest thing in the world.
I personally experienced that just with you facilitating a session with me a couple years ago. Personally facilitated that. I can vouch 100% for what you're saying. It's true. And I know we got to go, Karl. This has been amazing. We could talk for hours.
I had 5 minutes on the mirror neurons and the thing about the pastors.
Mm-hmm.
This is a no-brainer. Okay, so pastor, would it be a good thing if the people in your congregation became more like Jesus?
Yeah.
If you could wave a magic wand and have the people in your congregation that have their brains actually model after. I've just come some vague mind of Christ. Like their brains will actually start to imitate the brain, the mind and brain. However that works in a spirit person, but like their physical brains will actually start to change to be more like the mind of Jesus. Mm. Would that be a good thing? Duh. Not just for some spiritual reason, but any pastor who has their lights on, my job will get a whole lot easier. If my congregation became more like Jesus, if my congregation had the mind of Christ, if my congregation were being transformed to be more like the living presence of Jesus, my job would get a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Yes. It's always good to see you guys.
Great to see
so
you.
Much. Thanks for your time, Dr. Karl. We love you. We're so grateful for you and all the work you've put into this, and so excited to hear about what's going on with InterVarsity. That's just a joy to hear that and to be part of the revolution, or whatever it is, as the cresting wave. I'm just so excited to be part of that, because this is important. This is really important work, and this is about what the Christian life with Jesus is meant to be.
That young guy, is this what you Christians do?
Yeah. Unfortunately, not many, but some, and more will.
Actually, in that actual question, I didn't include this piece in the little story I just wrote in my newsletter. My first response is I just had tears.
Yeah.
And I just said, I am so sorry. Because in the wider context, it was clear to me, like, part of why he was not a Christian was because, like, his experience with churches and Christians have been negative and confusing.
Sure. And
he's like, well, is actually the way he asked it was, is this what you Christians do? He was like, oh, wait, is this what you Christians do? I totally didn't get that. I had no, like, from my experience with Christianity and Christians, I had no idea that this had anything to do with it. Like, is this what you Christians do? And I was like, oh, I am so sad. It breaks my heart that is so hard to see. Yeah. And that from all your interactions with Christians in church, you had no idea that this was actually the most important part. Yeah. But he was like, oh, well, when he realized, if this is what Christianity is about, let me in. I mean, he honestly said, well, will you let me in? I mean, will you let me be a Christian?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
This is the long goodbye session.
Yeah.
Wow, incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Karl. We love you. We're so glad that we're personal friends with you, and that this is more meaningful than just hearing some stories, because we're actually doing it and living it. And I know many people listening are doing it and living it as well, and are so encouraged by this. And those that haven't done it or tried this Immanuel stuff, that try it and check it out. That's what we're doing, and seeing lives transformed and changed.
Yeah.
Well, that was good.
Okay, we love Karl Lehman, and now you can see even more why. And so much good information there. And that mirror neuron thing, isn't that so cool to know that? That's so good.
It really matters who you hang around.
It really matters who you watch. It matters who you watch.
Who do you spend your time with?
Yes. Hey, so everybody that's on our newsletter list, be watching for some correspondence from us about partnering with us for the UK. Go to our website, to the Give button. If you're interested in Dashaway, you can go to our website, click on the Dashaway tab, and we look forward to bringing you more interviews as we go along.
We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us today. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with your friends.
And please stay tuned for more great content coming your way.